10 years ago, a lunatic from the right who'd been swimming in QAnon and 4chan walked into the pizza ping pong pizzeria 3 miles away from the Washington Hilton up Connecticut Avenue and fired his AR-17 or 15 into the roof and came to rescue the children and held people hostage. He thought a pedophilia ring was operating. He'd been swimming in the dark recesses of the web. The aftermath of that was immediate and widespread condemnation of the crazies, the shutdown of QAnon and the ridicule of QAnon, they became lepers. 4chan may have suffered a dent. Do you think there will be a similar reaction to the forums in which the shooter on the would-be statement assassin, the forums in which he swam, is that forthcoming? Is a blowback against them forthcoming?
No, I don't think so, Hugh. In fact, most of the mainstream media and Democratic leaders are willing to amplify everything that was in this lunatic's manifesto. You look at that interview that Trump did with Norah O'Donnell, and she's reading from the thing. I remember a time when we didn't release manifestos because they would be too dangerous. But now when they're slandering the president of the United States, she's more than happy to read it to him, like those words carry any weight. And we've seen that same message being amplified by Democratic leaders because they think they can win cheap political points by doing so. So I don't anticipate they're going to change any of their behavior at all.
You remind me, I talked about this yesterday. In 2007, the Virginia Tech killer who murdered 37 kids on the campus and wounded a dozen more, he had made a videotape and he had sent it to NBC. And they rushed it on the air. I went ballistic on this show, as did many other people, because you don't give them what you want. Norah O'Donnell gave the guy what he wanted. Now, you and I know how they run these things. They have production meetings. They go through the questions. The talent doesn't show up and just start firing questions. So I'm not ready to just blame Norah O'Donnell. Somebody sent her in to do that. Can 60 Minutes be fixed?
I have a hard time seeing how, Hugh. And it's a real shame because it's been a sort of a flagship program for a long time, but they've clearly lost their way. I think they were looking for a cheap reaction from the president by reading that manifesto, and they're going to do anything they can to try to get their ratings back, and I think that's what Norah O'Donnell was doing there. I think it was shameful.
And she stepped on a rake because the president kept his composure completely and said, "You're horrible people," plural, not just you, Norah. He knows how it's done. Horrible. You shouldn't be reading that. He gave her a lecture and a scolding. You think anyone's going to hear that other than Barry Weiss?
No, I would imagine she's probably getting back slaps at the cocktail party in Georgetown next time she shows up because she stuck it to Donald Trump. I mean, I think a lot of these questions are really driven by producers and people like Norah O'Donnell who run in circles in liberal media where they're really catering to each other rather than the audiences they pretend to care about, which is the most frustrating thing in all of this is like, I don't think Donald Trump should have done the interview. I mean, come on the Ruthless Variety program. Come talk to Hugh Hewitt. If you want to give a recap of your thoughts on this shooter, because every time he shows up at one of these mainstream outlets, they try to pull something like this. It's crazy.
Well, maybe it's a last round, Michael. I thought, wow, presidential. He's going to use the biggest venue available to him to reassure the world that the country is fine. Just like after Reagan got shot, Al Haig blew it, but then Reagan showed up on the balcony and waved as soon as he could, and George H.W. got back. But you assure the Iranians that there's not been a coup, and you assure the Iranians we're going to keep the strait closed. And Norah O'Donnell could have asked about the Iran war. I really could not believe the malpractice involved in that interview. But I digress. I want to ask you about the problem. What do we do about American education that is producing losers? And although this guy went to Caltech and got a master's, he was a part-time SAT tutor. And he was at the No Kings rally. He's a loser. How do we stop that?
I think there's a hopelessness that people feel, young people in America right now, and I think a lot of it is driven by social media and they see what people are posting on Instagram all day, and they're seeing the best aspects of every person's lives, and they feel like they're hopeless and they're not going anywhere, and so they're looking to find purpose, and people find purpose in the strangest places. Sometimes it's on 4chan or message boards where they feel like they can be a hero behind a keyboard, and then they do crazy things like this. It's an unfortunate part of our culture today. I think it's going to take a generation or two to change it, unfortunately.
Left field question for you. I'd love to hear the ruthless fellas answer this. Did you have a great teacher or teachers in high school? A great one?
I had great teachers in high school, particularly in subjects I really enjoyed. Teachers I didn't necessarily agree with on everything, but challenged me in ways that allowed me to think critically for the first time about new subjects. And the teachers were always respectful. I think a lot of parents really woke up during COVID and they saw the way that teaching was done in America today. It really opened their eyes that things have changed since when I was a kid, and it's unfortunate.
I had a couple of guys, Ron Kirenbauer and Fred Hoover. Ron was a right-wing Latin teacher. Fred was a center-left English teacher. Did not bring their politics with them. But boy, they could teach. And it was Catholic school, so they weren't getting paid either. Do you think those people still exist who want to teach not for tenure, but for the joy of teaching?
Yeah, I think absolutely. They definitely exist. I mean, shout out to Dr. Kivala, shout out to Margot McAleer. I had some great teachers, particularly in history when I was in high school. And in college, I found that the best teachers in college were the professors who came in after getting some real life experience working in the field in which they were teaching. And they could give you fantastic stories and anecdotes that applied to the field you hope to one day be working in. But I find in college, especially, those are few and far between.
I would love to reverse engineer this shooter's educational experience and find out where he went off the rails. It's not, he just didn't dive into blue sky and become crazy. Something happened along the way.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.